What if I told you that waiting for inspiration is the biggest scientific mistake you can make? Your brain has a hidden creative circuit that only turns on when you stop trying to think. Today, we are deconstructing the neuroscience of original ideas. I'll show you how to design a simple routine that forces your brain into aha moments on demand. The myth of the muse. Why your brain's best ideas never come when you are sitting at a desk. The brain is a restless machine. When it's locked in a quiet, static pose at a desk, the internal chatter slows. Studies show that the most powerful creative sparks travel through a phase called idea incubation, a period of quiet brain activity where the default network roams free. During this wandering, neurons fire randomly, and connections that seem unrelated at first begin to braid together. The result is a neural spark that is far more likely to push boundaries than the structured, purpose-driven thinking that dominates a desk. Imagine a copywriter who sits for hours staring at a blank document. Their mind recognizes a painful loop, stress, routine, and the familiar digital lull. At this point, the dopamine trigger, the brain's reward system, starts to wane. Ideas flounder. If, instead, the writer steps outside for a brisk walk, the body's blood flow spikes, breathing deepens, and this surge nudges the default network back into motion. The result is a sudden tidal wave of headlines that feel fresher and freer. Someone else, a software engineer, may find the same boost while listening to jazz or walking through a garden. In both cases, a different sensory input reawakens the brain's internal engine. Get practical. Set a rule to move a few steps every hour. The short bursts of movement are like a dopamine trigger, re-energizing the mind. Turn off the computer screen for a bit. Go to the kitchen, stir a pot, or stretch. Keep a notebook with a pencil at your bedside as a prompt for the neural spark that often creeps in while you dream. These small habits open the door for the default network to explore and fertilize new ideas without the mental toll of a silent, immobile desk. Ultimately, creativity thrives in motion. The long sit, short thought model is a myth. When the body moves, the brain's internal landscape expands, offering a fertile ground for connections to unite, born not from deliberate effort but from a spontaneous, wandering mind. The next time you feel stuck, climb the stairs, sip coffee, or simply glance out the window. Those moments, far from being idle, are the real incubators for the best ideas. The shower effect. How the default mode network solves your hardest problems while you do nothing. A single morning shower can brew a breakthrough. In the steam-filled room, the brain turns on its own creative power plant without you even noticing. The default network, the part of the brain that lights up when you're not focused on the outside world, starts a slow dance of neurons. It's like a hidden workshop in the attic where ideas grow among the cobwebs. Think of the default network as a gardening lawn. While the grass, your focused thinking, needs pruning and watering, the grass in the lawn can grow freely, finding new patches and paths. In that quiet, unstimulated space, pathways called the prefrontal cortex and the posterior cingulate cortex start to broker new connections. This process, called idea incubation, has been measured with fMRI scans that show increased connectivity in the default network during passive activities such as taking a shower or walking. The longer the session, the greater the potential for those secret sparks to ignite. The shower creates a perfect backdrop for this slow fire. The rising temperature raises core body temperature, which increases blood flow to the brain. Blood flow carries essential nutrients and removes waste, making the neural environment more conducive to joining disparate thoughts. Scientists call this the dopamine trigger, a subtle increase in the neurotransmitter dopamine that nudges the brain into a state of relaxed alertness. When dopamine levels rise, the brain becomes more willing to pair ideas that wouldn't ordinarily connect, creating a neural spark that often leads to a sudden insight. Imagine a designer stuck on a layout for a product launch. While waiting for the shower to finish, the designer's mind is no longer trapped in the confines of the specific problem. Instead, neurons in the default network weave abstract patterns, pulling in related designs, colors, textures, and even memories of a childhood story about a lighthouse. When the designer steps out, a sudden image of a modular housing unit with a lobe-like structure may appear. The shower-evoked insight, the neural spark, turns into a workable prototype. People often dismiss shower time as waste, but research from cognitive neuroscience shows that session lengths ranging from 3 to 5 minutes can significantly boost creative output. A simple experiment involved participants who answered puzzle questions after a shower. Their error rates fell by 12%, while their innovative solutions increased markedly compared to a control group who sat idle. The effect is not just about steam. It's about allowing the default network to negotiate freely while the brain's dopamine system enjoys a gentle cue. Practical tips for harnessing the shower effect are simple. Set an intention before you step in, perhaps a brief question, like what's the simplest way to make this process faster? Keep the water lukewarm, not too hot, as extreme temperatures can trigger stress signals that dampen the default network. Let your skin breathe. Leave the shower doors slightly ajar. After the shower, write down or voice record any sudden thoughts that flicker into consciousness. Those fleeting flashes are the seeds of innovation waiting to be plucked. In daily routines, a fleeting moment of undirected time can be gold. The shower, the commute, or even chewing gum, all are acts of quiet distraction that let the default network turn on its creative engine. By embracing these moments, you give your brain space to solve the hardest problems while your body does nothing but relax. Thus, the next time the water starts running, remember that it's not just cleansing your body, it's cleaning the slate for a fresh creative breakthrough. Dopamine routines. Designing an environment that triggers a state of creative flow on command. Shocking fact, a single walk on a rainy street can jumpstart a brain's idea incubation like a spark in a quiet room. When the mind drifts, the default network turns on, scrolling through memories, permissions, and possibilities. When a dopamine pulse arrives, everything snaps into focus. That pulse, the dopamine trigger, keeps the creative engine humming until you tell it otherwise. To program this on cue, begin with a morning routine that adds tiny rewards. Place a favorite mug on a desk cluttered with a single plant. The sight of green tastes of promise. It nudges the brain to release a small dose of dopamine. Pair it with a 2-minute breathing exercise. Inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. That ritual smooths the neural pathways, letting the idea incubate. A quick stretch at the side of the table can turn static muscles into motion, encouraging blood flow and a quick dopamine surge. Human brains love patterns that feel inevitable but remain low stakes. Install a creative window on the wall, painted with a muted color that isn't trying to scream but invites focus. A dim lamp, not too bright, lowers the default network's intensity, allowing the idea incubator to breathe. Keep a sticky note that says "heat it." Test it somewhere visible. That cue shifts dopamine from curiosity to execution, feeding the brain what it needs to keep moving from thought to action. Finally, incorporate the rhythm of the Pomodoro technique. Set a timer for 25 minutes of work, then reward with a 5-minute break. Each cycle delivers measurable dopamine spikes, reinforcing the loop. During the break, sip a glass of water or stretch, simple signals that the brain can read as a cue to reset. Repeating this pattern trains the brain to launch into flow whenever you hit the reset button, turning a simple day into a stage for sustained creativity. Incubation science. The psychological reason why walking away from a project is the most productive step. A sudden idea can knock a mind like a hammer on glass, shattering the calm. Yet the moment the hammer falls, the walls built around the thought begin to crack. Studies show that stepping back turns that plot of cracked glass into a polished window. When a brain slows its focus, the default network, the mind's idle chatter, turns on, sweeping through memories and associations in a dance that feels almost like dreaming. In practice, holding a design draft in one hand while scrolling through unrelated news keeps the project alive in a low-energy mode. When the flicker of a new headline reaches the cortex, the dissociated half of the brain reaches out. The idea stirs, rearranges, rechecks, and sometimes tears away at false assumptions. Progress that seems stalled at the desk bursts forward when the hand is lifted, like a molten core cooling and solidifying into a new shape. Imagine a software engineer who battles through a buggy piece of code for hours. After a break, sipping coffee away from the screen, she returns to the same problem and sees a different syntax error. The gap of distance allowed the dopamine trigger, an internal reward pulse, to play. The sudden moment of revelation, neural spark, unlocks a simpler algorithm. The dopamine spike signals success, encouraging further exploration. This reinvention often produces cleaner logic and fewer bugs. In everyday chess, a player who pauses after a losing move often draws a new board mentally. Without the immediate pressure, the mind scans a broader array of future positions. The neural network rewires, often spotting a counterattack no one considered before. The same principle holds for writers, musicians, painters. A deliberate pause, a walk at a park, or even a quick errand gives the brain raw material to remix. The experience is not riddled with complacency. It's an active alchemy that turns raw chaos into structured brilliance. Pattern recognition, training your brain to connect distant dots and see opportunities others miss. A single spark of curiosity can unravel 1,000 hidden paths. Scientists find that when the brain lets its default network roam free, the mind stitches together stray memories, experiences, and facts in ways that ordinary logic never suggests. This network, the brain's background chatter, quietly pairs distant dots, like a street artist connecting splashes of paint that belong together. Pattern recognition comes alive in those fleeting moments of wandering, and the brain rewards itself with a tiny dopamine trigger, turning every new connection into a mini celebration. Picture a chef stacking flavors. He trains his palate to notice subtle hints that others miss, a whisper of cumin in a soup or a glint of citrus in a chocolate sauce. By tasting different dishes and noting overlaps, the chef builds a personal map of ingredients. The same principle works for the brain. Regular exposure to varied subjects, music, math, art, lets the prefrontal cortex see bridges between fields. A software engineer who also doodles may notice analogies between code structure and musical motifs. That neural spark lights a path forward, guiding problems toward unexpected solutions. Daily routines can sharpen this skill without overhauling life. A 10-minute walk in a park, armed with a sketchpad, encourages the brain to hunt for patterns in movement, light, and sound. Switching between tasks, reading a news article, solving a crossword, writing a journal entry, spreads neural activation across networks, creating a fertile ground for linkages. The brain's default mode, awake but unoccupied, flashes up when you let yourself daydream about a novel idea, and often the best insight arrives unbidden, while the mind is elsewhere. In practice, training pattern recognition is about building variety and patience. Hide small puzzles amid work, ask what would happen if, after any problem, and celebrate every small connection, no matter how odd. By feeding the dopamine trigger through small wins, the brain learns faster and tricks the hippocampus into racing its memory loops in new directions. Over weeks, the default network's mind-wandering turns from idle chatter into a trusted collaborator, and suddenly opportunities that were invisible at first glance become obvious. Did you know that the next big idea might already be brewing in the quiet corners of your mind? Imagine your brain as a city of streets and tunnels, and we are the neuroarchitects showing you how to pave the right roads for flow. First, the default network is the quiet backstreets that run whenever you let your thoughts wander. It's where the seeds of possibility settle. Next, the idea incubation is like a nighttime workshop. Your subconscious keeps chiseling away on those seeds while you rest. When you reach a point where those raw thoughts feel just right, the dopamine trigger lights up the path with a burst of motivation, a little reward that says keep going. Finally, the neural spark fires, an electric moment that turns those simmering ideas into vivid, usable creativity. You've just walked through that map: idle wandering, default network, hidden sharpening, idea incubation, reward pulse, dopamine trigger, and the big aha moment, neural spark. When you put these together into your daily routine, say, a short walk, a quick jot down after a coffee break, and a timebox creative session, you're engineering flow without guessing. Think of yourself now. You've got the blueprint and the tools. Add a 10-minute morning window for wandering, a 20-minute focus sprint, and watch how effortlessly those neural sparks ignite. If you're ready to start designing your own flow state, hit that like button, smash subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next guide. Next week, we'll explore how silence and structured pause can supercharge those neural sparks, because true creativity isn't just a flash, it's a rhythm we can conduct. So go on, build the streets of your mind, plant those seeds, and let the sparks fly. Your best ideas are waiting, and we are here to help you light the way.